Hi, and welcome to Mindful Mondays with Carrie. I want to make a note that there is a thunderstorm outside, so you might hear, sounds of storms. And if you would like a deeper dive from this episode, you can go ahead onto willowholisticcenter.com to read the blog. So getting right into it, today I'm going to talk about self-kindness. Okay, self-kindness is one of three components that Kristin Neff has identified. Kristin Neff is a pioneer of research on self-compassion. She's also an author of, I believe, more than one book, but the book that I've recently come to love is Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. All right, so the first component of self-compassion is that of self-kindness. Now, we've already talked about some of the resistances that many people have to self-compassion. And one is about our culture and how there is just a resistance to being kind to ourselves. It is emphasized to be kind to others and not to ourselves, okay? And this is one of the most powerful coping mechanisms that we can employ to help us through the challenges of life, okay? So the first step is to recognize when we're criticizing or judging ourselves and to stop it so that we can then actively provide comfort to ourselves. And this can be done in many ways. Now, if you're anything like me, you might feel that this is a tall order. You may be aware of judging and criticizing yourself harshly for years, or in my case, decades, before you've come to find out all about self-compassion. So I'm really glad that you're here if you're one of those people like myself. And as we discussed in a previous episode, our bodies and our brains are designed for this. So that is really good news. It is easier to cultivate self-kindness than you might think, okay? I am living proof of this. So our brains are designed both with fight and flight systems, as well as tend and befriend systems. We need both in order to survive, okay? We need care and nurturance in order to develop and grow, and we need to be able to fight and protect ourselves from harm as well. Both are necessary. We're designed for both. We're not creating something we're not designed for. It's right in us. We simply need to change the habit that you may have cultivated over the years. As we give ourselves empathy and support, then we begin to learn to trust that kindness is within our reach. It's right here, okay? We also went over this in the reparenting series, right? We get the honor and privilege to care for ourselves. We get to recognize what we want and need and offer that to ourselves, okay? So the more and more we do this, the more and more we develop that trust in our relationship with ourselves that the kindness is right within reach. We're developing that. So instead of seeing me or my emotions as a problem and something to be fixed, I can shift to self-kindness, and I can honor myself as a valuable human who is worthy of care, okay? And again, we tend to be experts of this externally. Our culture emphasizes kindness and compassion to other people. So if it's hard for you to access it with ourself, especially at the beginning, it might be easier to think, okay, what would I say to a friend in this situation? What would I say to my child? Or something of that nature, and then to be able to flip it and practice receiving it for yourself. So another thing is to simply embrace self-kindness, and I mean this both literally as well as metaphorically, to embrace self-kindness. So just as I talked before about how with self-criticism and that fight and flight system, with the self-criticism, we become the attacker as well as the attacked, okay? In the tend and befriend system, we can be the comforter as well as the comforted, okay? And physical touch, the skin is one of our largest organisms or organs, and touch releases oxytocin, and it can be a powerful way to soothe distressing emotions and bring calm to ourselves. So you can literally hug yourself, okay? There's also moving our arms down, our hands down, our arms like this. Not up and down as though you're trying to warm up, but just down. And whatever else you might, depending on where you're at when you're having these distressing emotions, perhaps you're around the table at a board meeting, you might not want to hug yourself. That might feel just way outside of the comfort zone. You could, however, put your hand on your thigh and rub, or perhaps on your hand, holding your hand in a way that feels like you're caressing your hand, not gripping. You know, you might be able to brush your arm like this. So you can find ways to provide yourself with that embrace of self-kindness, whether it's a literal hug or some sort of touch. I always love my head rub, so sometimes if I'm curled up and feeling sad, I might actually caress my own head or my forehead and provide that to myself. It's very soothing for me. So finding what works for you. It's also important to note that despite our efforts to control circumstances of life, we can be kind to ourselves regardless of what is happening in life. And in fact, in order to be kind to ourselves when we are confronted with our limitations, our personal limitations or the limitations of life, can really help us in reducing our suffering. It's when I'm pushing against and wanting it to be different than it is that really creates suffering, as opposed to providing myself with kindness for what is present in the moment. All right. So, self-kindness. Your teachable takeaway for this week, it comes from, well, a couple places. It is from a popular book by Marshall Rosenberg called Nonviolent Communication. And it's also part of the Gestalt Awareness and Contact Cycle, which was one of the first episodes of Mindful Mondays. So this is really a way of creating dialogue within ourselves that's sympathetic as opposed to critical and judgmental, okay? So there's 4 steps. The first is to notice, what am I observing? What am I aware of? This can be something you do mentally and informally. You could do it in an audio journal or an audio recording on your phone or whatever device you want to use. I also do it through journaling, written. So whichever way feels accessible to you is what I would recommend doing. So the first step is, what am I observing? What am I aware of? Second is, what am I feeling? Okay. And this can be emotional, naming what your emotion is. It can also be sensations in your body. Emotions are felt in the body, so whichever way you can access it. But what am I feeling is the second question. And third, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And then 4, do I have a request of myself? And that request it might be something that you can do to satisfy that need. And it may also be reaching out for support to get that need met, okay? So that is self-kindness, the first component of self-compassion. All right. And again, you can read the blog on willowholisticcenter.com if you want to get into it a little bit more. I hope you have a mindful day. I will see you next week.